Hello, everyone. It's me, the detached voice again. How's everyone doing? Good. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Yeah, that's right. My name's Julia Ray Hoddenfield. I'm the manager of adult programming here at New Canaan Library. And I'm just here for a moment to say thank you so much for being here. And please pull out your cell phones and make sure that they're silent. I have to say that every time. And in addition to that, just remember that we have a couple of exits here. If you're parked in our parking lot, you could exit on the left. If you want to go to town afterwards, you can exit to the right. Now that that's out of the way, I want to thank our friends Manfredi Jewels for partnering with us on this very exciting Landscape of Diamonds presentation, Gemologist Kevin J. Lane. It is partnerships like this that allow us to do really exciting programming. So thank you so much to Manfredi for this really cool program. Okay, and without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Mary from Manfredi. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Mary, as Julia Ray just said, and I want to first thank the library for hosting us this evening. We are really thrilled to be bringing you this presentation on the diamond industry and show our mutually deep commitment to this really special New Canaan community. So Kevin's going to be speaking about his background, but you can take my word that he has extensive experience in the jewelry industry. And tonight he's going to be talking about the history of diamonds, how they're created, some celebrity and famous diamonds, and the hot topic of lab-grown and naturally mined diamonds. And after he's done, there will be plenty of time for a question and answer portion. Following the question and answer portion, in the back, many of you have seen our display. You'll get to see lab and natural grown stones side by side and use the contact cards that hopefully you got in the front to vote on which one you think is lab grown. You'll definitely want to make sure to put one of the cards in a ballot box because we're going to be combining them all at the end of the evening to draw the winner of the beautiful pair of diamond earrings. And with that contact card, you are making yourself eligible to donate 10% of your next purchase to the library. So that's a one purchase occasion, but it does not expire. So next time you feel like treating yourself to some diamonds, you let us know that you were here and we will donate 10% of that to the library. So I personally have been really looking forward to this presentation and can't wait to get started. So please help me welcome Kevin Lane.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Again, my name is Kevin Lane. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I was invited here by Roberto from Manfredi to speak to you about fly fishing in Connecticut. Fortunately for you all, I know very little about fly fishing, although I have been fly fishing. So I know a lot about diamonds, so we're going to focus on diamonds this evening. Again, I would like to thank the library and my good friends at Manfredi Jewels, Roberto and his wife Roberta, who's not with us tonight. She's down in Florida. But when Roberto asked me back in November to do this, I didn't even look at my calendar. I just said I'd be happy to do it. They're some of the finest people in the industry, and I'm happy to be here to do this. So without further ado, let me just give you a little bit about my background. I began this amazing journey of mine 46 years ago, selling jewelry on the streets of San Francisco, believe it or not. My hair was a little bit longer. My mother thought I was born a little later than I should have been. From there, I made it back to Detroit, my hometown, worked for a family jeweler for 10 years that was in the lobby of the General Motors World headquarters when General Motors was the #1 corporation in the world. That was really my foundation. It was a small family-run business, and from there, I've gone on to work for many high-end respected retailers. I've worked for many good brands. I've traveled the world, visited many diamond mines, and I ended up in the boardroom at De Beers. So I worked there for the last 10 years. Currently, though, I am working for a company called Martin Flyer, which is a high-end jewelry manufacturer based in New York City that focuses on bridal. We are a diamond site holder of De Beers. What that means is De Beers has about 70, 80 companies that get invited to visit them 10 times a year to buy their rough diamond. And it's quite a privilege and an honor to be a site holder. So I will say, though, it's really not possible in this 45 minutes we have to cover the entire history of diamonds. So try to piece together a little bit about the formation, a little bit of history. We'll talk about some famous diamonds, which is always interesting. 4 C's, of course, which many of you know about, but I'll dive a little deeper into that. Then we'll talk about the hot topic, as Mary said, natural versus lab, which is really accelerated onto the scene in the last 10 years. And then last, I want to talk a little about responsible sourcing. So without further ado, one of the world's most precious treasures, a diamond, is one of nature's most incredible and unique gifts. Born deep in the earth millions of years ago, diamonds have been on an incredible journey. Very much like a snowflake, every diamond is unique, a natural pattern telling a different story, and no two are alike. Diamond is made up of billions of carbon atoms. Each carbon atom in a diamond is strongly bonded with 4 others, making them the hardest substance known to man. The name diamond actually comes from the Latin word adamus, which means unconquerable. So for centuries, they've been sought after by all of mankind as symbols of power, protection, love, and good fortune. Diamonds actually were formed 1 to 3 billion years ago in the Earth's mantle, 90 to 150 miles deep. There's some, and we'll talk about them later. There's a special type of diamond called type 2A diamonds, which are very pure. It can be as deep as 500 miles into the crust. No one knows exactly where the first diamond was discovered. Let's talk about them in medieval times. We know that first diamond could be on someone's finger out here tonight. However, we do know that humans first discovered sizable diamonds in India back in 4,000 years ago. Billions of years had passed from when they were formed to this pivotal moment of discovery. Most diamonds made their way toward the Earth's surface via ancient volcanoes. And as those volcanoes blasted toward the surface, diamonds in their path were trapped in that hot magma and transported to the surface. You can only imagine when you see there's a couple little pieces of rough diamond back there, but when you see some of the larger diamonds, for them to travel from that depth, 200 miles deep from the earth, and travel through these kimberlite tubes, you know how they can be displaced, and along the way, that's where a lot of trace elements and materials get trapped in the diamond. So as it's cooling, that's where the inclusions come about. It's really an interesting process for them to make their way to the surface. Like all of our planet's natural resources, though, diamonds are finite, and they're only getting rarer. Nature will not bring any more diamonds to the surface from the Earth's mantle. All that volcanic activity that happened tens of millions of years ago no longer is happening. So over the last 140 years, about 7,000 of these kimberlite pipes, and that's the mother rock that they're discovered in, about 7,000 of these pipes have been sampled, and only of that 7,000, 1,000 of them actually contain diamonds. And of those thousands, only about 60 have had been sufficiently rich in diamonds to be economically viable. And of those 60, only 7 mines, including the De Beers groups, the Zhuaneng, the Orapa, and the Venetia mines, which are located in Botswana, are responsible for a good portion of the world's diamonds. It's remarkably rare to find these small, precious diamonds. It actually takes to unearth about 200 to 250 tons of earth to find a 1-carat diamond. And for those of you who know tons, that's like half a million, 500,000 pounds of earth has to be moved. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. And so because they are inherently rare as well as endlessly enduring, diamonds are a meaningful symbol of life's most precious moments and emotions. This here is a sample of a diamond that actually came through the kimberlite pipes. That's what they call blue ground, the mother rock that it was found in. So there's some amazing finds. Some you can look at and figure, wow, that is a diamond, whereas you'll see others that looks like a dirty piece of rock crystal or something, and something you just walk right past. This is a little bit of a timeline of discovery. So again, diamonds have been talked about in ancient times, medieval times, that really weren't any sufficient amount recovered, but we knew that they existed because they were formed 3 billion years ago. 4th century India, there was an area called the Golconda. So some people referred to those diamonds as Golconda diamonds because they were very high quality diamonds that came from that region. So when diamonds were then discovered in 1746 in Brazil, which was the next known discovery, started to call those Golconda diamonds also because people figured they weren't Golconda, they weren't beautiful diamonds because these Indian diamonds had such a reputation. And some of the most beautiful diamonds, including the Hope Diamond, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that came from India. And then in 1851, it was recorded diamonds were sourced in Australia, but they weren't really mined until 1967 through 1922. And I'll talk about that in another timeline ahead here. But it's really in 1866 in South Africa where actually the first diamond was really discovered. It was called the Eureka diamond. And again, I have a visual on that, talk about it in a little bit, and I'll give you a little of that history. But it was really in 1871, years later, someone discovered an 83-carat piece of rough diamond, Kimberley Mine, which is in South Africa in the town of Cullinan. And that really set the rush in motion. And people started walking to South Africa. They were buying up claims, and it was really like the Wild West down there. And that's really where it really took off. Of course, in 1888, De Beers Consolidated Mines was founded. During that period from 1871 to 1888, there was a gentleman by the name of Cecil Cecil Rhodes. You might recognize the name. He's responsible for the Rhodes Scholarship, London. He bought up with another gentleman, Barney Barnado. They bought up a lot of the claims, and they pretty much took control of the industry at that point. And we'll talk again a little bit about that. But going forward, in 1906, diamonds were discovered in the United States of America. Believe it or not, in Murfreesboro, Arkansas. There was a crater that actually filled in, and the top of it was still there today. It's called the Crater State Park, and you can go there and you can pay, I don't know what, I've never been there, but you can pay dollars for the day and you can search for diamonds, and whatever you find, you keep. So there was a gentleman just last week I read in the paper from Paris, a tourist, that found an 8-carat diamond. So they still do exist, but back in 1924, the largest diamond ever discovered in the U.S. In Arkansas, it's called the Uncle Sam. It was a 40-carat rough diamond. It was beautiful quality, and it was cut into an 8-carat emerald. If you're looking for something to do and you want to go prospecting diamonds, head to Arkansas. And then there was a bit of a decline in this timeline. So like after the Great Depression, people didn't really want diamonds. They couldn't afford diamonds, just weren't a thing. And so actually most of the diamond mines around the world closed in 1932. Shortly thereafter, as we were sort of coming out of the Depression, De Beers realized, as they owned a good portion of the diamonds, they needed to figure out a way to market these diamonds. So they hired a U.S. firm, New York-based N.W. Ayer, some of you probably have heard of, in 1938, and they worked on coming up with the proper promotion or tagline. They hired this woman, Frances Garrity. In 1948, they were due to do a presentation in the morning for De Beers on what their campaign was going to be. She was clueless. She had no idea what she was going to present. So in the middle of the night, the story goes, and I've heard this a gazillion times from my colleagues at De Beers, so I know it's, I think, factual. She reached over on her nightstand, pulled off a piece of paper, and she wrote down, "Diamond is forever." That became the tagline of the 20th century. She presented it the next day, and De Beers loved it, and diamonds have been promoted ever since. As a result of that, today, and you all remember a lot of the old De Beers ads, as a result of their efforts, at one point, De Beers, I don't like to use the word control, but they managed 80% of the world's diamond supply, which today is only about 32%. So 8 out of every 10 diamonds that were in jewelry stores came from De Beers. 75% of engaged women today will wear a diamond as a result of all their marketing efforts. 1954, diamonds were then discovered in Russia, and they become a very important player today. I mean, they mine more diamonds than any country in the world. But we're currently having issues, and the industry is picking up sanctions. There are sanctions in place, but they're figuring out ways to enforce the fact that they don't want diamonds coming in countries from Russia. So the State Department and a lot of people I know are actively working on a system that will put in place that will make sure that what was happening was diamonds would go from Russia to cutting facilities in different countries. They'd be transformed. They were still mined in Russia, but they would end up coming through a cutting facility. So they're looking at putting through blockchain technology that can trace all of this so that diamonds coming into the country will be 100% from the countries that they're supposed to be. And then in 1979, back to Australia, there was a discovery there called the Argyle Mine, which was an amazing mine. It opened in 1985, and it just closed a couple years ago. That mine was well known for creating some of the most beautiful pink diamonds that are in the world. They were pinks and browns, and they were very clever. There was a mining company called Rio Tinto that owned the mine. They were very good marketers in that they called the brown diamonds champagne, cognac, because for a while, brown diamonds were just, they weren't desirable. I mean, white diamonds were supposed to be what you purchased, but cut properly and in the right light, and there's many people that love these today, but they did a wonderful job marketing them as champagne and cognac diamonds. So here's a little map showing you the producing countries. The major ones is Canada, Russia, Brazil, all the South African countries you can see there, China, India, and Australia. This next slide actually shows where the deposits were. So these are what you can see in the back there, but it just gives you a sense with the blue dots, shows the different type of material, that the trace material. So, when they look to open mines, I mean, De Beers and other large mining companies, they spend a lot of money in exploration, sonar technology and things to fly over regions where they think there's diamond deposits, and they'll start the exploration. They spend billions of dollars doing this. Once they find a mine, it takes probably 10 years to open it. There's different types of elements that they look for, or indicators. So again, here's the top 10 producing countries in the world. You can see Russia produces volume, the most diamonds, but by value, you can see that second line, the 4.7, Botswana, they produce the most by value. And you'll see in some of the upcoming slides some of the diamonds that come out of Botswana. So the Russian diamonds are smaller, and a lot of fluorescence come out of there. And again, I'll talk about fluorescence if you're not familiar with that, but this just gives you an idea where the bulk diamonds are coming from. Canada has become a very important source. People like Canadian diamonds because they are single source. You know, they're mined there, they're produced there, they're manufactured there. They just tend to be, they have beautiful diamonds, but they're not the largest diamonds that come out of there. And there's a couple of the mines that, again, also produce a lot of fluorescence. So let's talk about some of these large diamonds. Isn't that an amazing picture there of a beautiful white crystal? That is what we call a type 2A diamond. And what that means is that diamond was probably found much deeper into the earth, probably in the 400 to 500 mile deep. And it has very few impurities. So there's no nitrogen or boron in it. And it's just crystal clear and very, very white. Since 2015, there have been 6 diamonds weighing 800 carats or larger that have been discovered at one mine. It's called the Karo mine in Botswana. There's a wine. Am I talking about wine? It's that time of night. What am I doing? I have water up here. Okay. So it was a mine that De Beers owned at one point, and they gave it up and sold it to a company called Lucara, and they have just been pulling the biggest diamonds that have been found in years out of this mine. And I'm going to show you the top 10 diamonds, or the top 7. In history, there's only been 112 diamonds in total that have come out of the ground weighing more than 200 carats. So these are very, very rare diamonds. And again, because of the size of these diamonds, and they travel through these pipes and tremendous pressure and speed, a lot of things can happen to them. I mean, there's a lot of big diamonds. Cullinan, which is the largest diamond ever discovered, is thought to have been bigger. They thought part of it broke off. Only 6 diamonds totaling 1,000 carats or more, and we'll start by showing you. First, actually, there's one that's not on this list that's worth mentioning. There's a diamond that was discovered in Brazil on the surface. It's called the Sergio Carbonata. It was a black diamond. It wasn't gem quality whatsoever, but it weighed 3,167 carats, so it was larger than the Cullinan. But it was of industrial quality. It wasn't gem quality, but it was the largest diamond to date ever discovered. They think it landed on the surface due to a meteor, because diamonds can form in space as well due to the high pressure and temperatures. The carbon crystallizes. So then the second diamond, just discovered in 2019, Suelo diamond, weighed 700, I skipped right over Cullinan, 3,106 carats, that was discovered at that Cullinan mine, 1905. And I'm going to talk about it in more detail in a future slide. Secondly, this Suelo was just discovered in 2019, again at that Karo mine, 758 carats, followed by one of 1174 that's still unnamed, same mine. And then this one, the CD La Rona, weighed 1111. That was discovered in 2015. I'm going to talk about all these more in detail. The 1098 diamond, and then there was one that weighed 1080. These are the only diamonds that were ever discovered that weighed over 1,000 carats, which is pretty remarkable. You can see, here's the Cullinan. It's actually 4 inches by 2.5 inches by 2.3 inches. It was sold to was discovered at the Cullinan mine, and it was sold to the Transvaal government, who purchased it for 150,000 pounds, which is the equivalent of maybe 20 million pounds today. And it was gifted to Henry VII on his 66th birthday, November 9th, 1907. Received that, and they hired probably the best known diamond cutter in the world out of Amsterdam called the Joseph Asher Company. And they studied that diamond for a good number of years. And they cut that diamond into 9 gem quality diamonds, all that are in the royal family today, crown jewels. And there was another 96 smaller ones. The rumor has it, and again, I know some of the descendants of the Asher Company still in business today, and I know Lita Asher, which is a great-great-granddaughter. Back in those days, they didn't have lasers, so these diamonds were studied, and they were marked by these master cutters to determine what they were going to do. And if they made diamond is like a piece of wood. It has certain grains that you have to cut in favor of. You can't cut against them, or you could shatter it and destroy this beautiful. So they studied this, and when he put his cleaver in there to go and split it open, the blade broke. So he got very, very nervous, and he said to his team, he said, "I need to have a doctor and a nurse present before we finish this operation," because he said, I don't feel good about this. So they proceeded later that day, and he cut it, and it was successfully cleaved. Magnificent. And again, this was one of those type 2A diamonds, so it was a very pure diamond, and it created some of the nicest gems you'll ever see. This is what that Suelo looked like. This was actually purchased by Louis Vuitton, because Louis Vuitton had recently purchased Tiffany & Company, and they're getting into the jewelry business, and they thought this would add credibility to them owning a diamond of this magnitude. It's near gem quality, and the funny thing about it is it has this thin layer carbon on it, so it looks like a black diamond, but it's a very clear gem quality diamond. But this is how it looked in nature, or when it was found. So that can all be polished away. This next one is unnamed, and this was discovered less than a week after the 1098 was discovered. In the Caro mine, what they're starting to do is they discovered they have this new X-ray technology, so that instead of putting these diamonds through these crushers, X-ray the big lot of them beforehand to make sure that there's nothing big. I mean, if they did this years ago, we may have more large diamonds, but a lot of them would end up in the crusher, and then they go on a conveyor belt with a layer of grease on it, and then the natural diamonds would stick to that. Now, before they hit that belt, they're doing this X-ray. The X-ray will be able to determine if substance in there, and they'll stop the belt, take it off, and examine it. So it's really why we're seeing a lot of these large diamonds all of a sudden. This one is beautiful. I actually saw a replica of it. I didn't get to see the real thing, but this is a Lacita Larona. This was actually discovered in 2015, and it was purchased by Groff & Company, famous jeweler out of London, who's very well known for large, beautiful gemstones. They have a shop in New York City as well, many you may be aware of. But they cut this diamond to this. This was an Asher cut. So this is really a square emerald cut, but with the beveled corners, window into the middle of it. That was designed by the Asher family. So it really is called an Asher cut. People refer to it as a square emerald cut. But this diamond weighed 302 carats, and it was the largest, highest quality diamond ever graded by the GIA, which is the Gemological Institute of America. I don't know if you've ever been to London and the Crown Jewels, but I mean, they're on display. You view them. They do wear them. This is not. This was just discovered 2015. It's a new diamond. It's a recent diamond discovery. Can't say new because they're all old. And then this is the one. This was a 1098, which was just discovered in 2021. And this one was actually found at the Zhuaning mine, at the Caro mine, which is a De Beers mine. So they have a joint venture with Depswana, which is the local government. And this was the last one, and this was just discovered last August 2023. And again, as a type 2A, you can see how clear it is. You can see a little bit of black inclusion there. It's natural. And again, those are what we call inclusions, or some people say they're carbon spots. Well, diamond is essentially pure carbon. So these are just inclusions that diamond that's crystallized as a diamond was being formed. And they come in different forms. Some look like white feathers, inclusions. The black little bubbles, those are nature's birthmarks. This is just a picture of the Caro mine. It's not one of the largest mines in the world, but it gives you an idea of, and I've been to larger mines than this, but when you're there, it's amazing when you look at this equipment. The tires on this equipment are as high as the ceiling. I mean, they look like little toy trucks in this picture, but when you're down there, they go layer by layer by layer, cutting away at the rock till they get to the bottom. And then when they're out of resource, then they start to go underground. Beers just invested $1 billion in one of their Guaning mine to extend the life of it. Again, as I was saying earlier, diamonds are very finite, and there's no more being really discovered. It's pretty rare. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 C's. I know a lot of you are familiar with it, but these are the 4 characteristics that we grade diamonds by. Back in 1940, a gentleman by the name of Robert Shipley founded the Gemological Institute of America, along with his colleague Richard Lidico, who was a very established gemologist. They came up with a grading system that is still being used universally today. There are 5 or 6 well-known labs in the world. Beers has their own lab as well. The GIA has been the one that's really lasted through the years, and people recognize it as being the standard. So let me see, does it show? Yeah, here we go. So this is the 1C that man can control. I mean, you think about it, the clarity and the inclusions and the weight for he can cut actually, the weight will be the result of his cut. But of all the C's, diamond cut has the greatest effect on the diamond's beauty. In determining the quality of the cut, the diamond grader evaluates the cutter's skill in fashioning that diamond. The more precise the diamond is cut, the more captivating it is to the eye. And these are the 5 grades that the GIA uses. There's excellent cut grade, very good cut grade, good, fair, and poor. And this is an illustration. At one point in my career, I worked for a company called Lazar Kaplan International, which was the ideal cut on the far left enough is a diamond. There's a gentleman back in 1919 called Marcel Tokowski who studied performance of light in a diamond for his thesis. Easy for you. His college paper. I unfortunately never wrote one of those, but I know what they are. So he wrote about the discovery or the travel of light through a diamond. He came up with these ideal proportions that if you cut a round diamond, you're going to get this type of return. So it has the right amount of angles in the top half versus the bottom half. So you can see if it's cut right, the diamond travels into the diamond and comes back out to the eye. You'll get the most reflection, brilliance, and scintillation. If it's cut too shallow, you can see what can happen. The light can just shoot right through the bottom. And years ago, they used to refer to this extreme example of this. It might have a thinner top, considered a swindle cut, because it looked much bigger than it was, but it was like a thin wafer. So it was kind of a shy, they also called it, because it didn't have, but it was a big diamond. I mean, it looked big to people, and some people like that. I mean, there's diamonds for everybody. And then, of course, the last one is the one that's cut too deep, where it'll actually, a lot of the weight is retained in the lower part of the diamond, and the light will shoot right through the bottom of it. These, of course, these are the popular diamond shapes, not to confuse cut shapes. Cut is actually, how the cutter fashions the diamond. But these are probably round, of course, is probably still 75-80% of diamonds. What is extremely popular today with a lot of young couples, and it changes all the time. It's cyclical where people change. But right now the oval is very popular. More importantly is the cushion. And it's not so much the square cushion, and they want it to be this elongated cushion. All diamonds are beautiful if they're cut properly. So, I mean, it depends on your personality and what appeals to you. So this is I wanted to show this slide because this is an octahedron. This is what a diamond would look like. Often, this is a part of the cubic. So the crystal formations, this is called the cubic formation, and it is an octahedron. And you can see with the round diamond in there, it'd be very easy to fashion a round diamond. And if you take the top part of it, flip it upside down, and do a smaller round as well. So when cutter gets a piece of rough like this, he studies it and he tries to determine the maximum yield because he doesn't want to waste the diamond. So often they'll cut it for beauty. Sometimes they'll just cut it for weight. When you cut a diamond of this size, you usually get a yield of anywhere from 40 to 70%. So the rest is used for small melee diamonds. So they have to determine, again, it depends on the location of the inclusions also. Today they used to have to polish a window in the diamond, look at the diamond and determine where the inclusions were, where it was best to cut that diamond. Today we have X-ray technology that they can look at these diamonds. It'll create a model that will say if you cut this, it will yield this, and you'll get this much out of it because it'll be a 10 karat GVS1. On the market, that's worth this. So the technology has just advanced. This will just give you an illustration of some of the different shapes of rough diamonds that are found. And this is almost a perfect octahedron, which is it's really like two triangles on top of each other. And if you ever see one of these, good chance it might be a diamond, depending on where you are. That's natural, yes. Yeah, that's how it would be found in wherever it was discovered. Nothing's been done to that, but you can see how clear that is. This next, this is a piece that was probably broken. You can see the edge to it, so it was probably a very large diamond, but it kind of broke off. There's another octahedron that's not quite as crystal clear with a polished diamond next to it. The next C would be the color of the diamond, and the color of the gem diamond occurs in many hues. It ranges from colorless to light yellow to light. Of course, colorless being the rarest, and those would be in the DEF. We kind of call those the rare whites. It also can make the diamond much more expensive. And when you get beyond the Z, then they become fancy color diamonds, and then the color is so when we grade diamonds, color for color, look at a diamond face up, the ones in the back there, it's hard to tell what the color is because you're seeing all the play of light and the dispersion and the scintillation. They're beautiful. If it's a well-cut diamond, it's going to be, again, as we were saying in the earlier slide, more precise it is, it's going to perform that much better. Performs better. Even a lower color diamond will look much whiter than it is, if that makes sense, because what you're looking at is all the play of light. When we grade diamonds, you grade them loose, and they're tabled down like this, and you have a set of pre-graded diamonds, master set of diamonds, and you would take a diamond and you would move it between these diamonds till you determined which one you thought it was closest to. And then there'd be 2 or 3 graders that would also confer to decide, because it is somewhat subjective. There is machinery that does this, and some of the labs do use that, but Beers has the machinery to do that, but they still use a human to be the final. This again just shows you the striation of the colors And again, clarity. Clarity is, diamonds have internal characteristics, as I said, nature's birthmarks, known as inclusions. The external characteristics are known as blemishes. Diamonds without inclusions and blemishes are very rare. Those are considered the flawless diamonds. Again, most of these, even a trained eye, you can go all the way down to the SI1, and if they're graded properly and the inclusions are not dead center, very difficult for someone to see those inclusions. So you have flawless, which have no internal or external inclusions, and then internally flawless might have some external blemishes that are just there, and some of them are not able to be polished out. They could be an extra facet or a natural on the girdle. But as you go down, it's like VVS1, VVS2. It means very, very slightly included to the first or second degree. You're going to be lucky if you see a real little tiny pinpoint. When you get down to the I1s, the included or the imperfect diamonds, those you can start to see inclusions with the naked eye. There's enough of them and the location of them that it doesn't allow the light to travel through the diamond, and then that's when it affects a lot less expensive. This kind of shows you a little bit when you get a diamond grading report. There's a plot that will show the different types of inclusions, whether they're feathers or lines. It'll indicate what they are. Again, the carat weight is the only C that's actually objective. I mean, you take the diamond, you put it on a scale, and if the scale is accurate, and it will give you the exact weight of the diamond. The other three, the one is controlled by cutter, the other two, this just gives you a sense of size. It may not be easy to tell on this. The important thing here is the millimeter, if you can see that. So if you have a 1 carat diamond and it's a well-cut diamond, it roughly should be about 6.5 millimeters. If it's 5 millimeters and it weighs a carat, that would tell me that there's a lot of weight retained. It's going to be a deeper diamond. So you can tell a lot by the dimensions of the diamond. And the fifth C, and I think one of the most important, is confidence. And I think it's really important that you find a reputable, trustworthy jeweler, like Manfredi Jewels, that you feel confident, with your decision, because they're the ones that are qualified to describe the characteristics and give you the most information about your purchase. There's a lot of information on the internet. The internet is a great tool for research. Just because someone spends 6 minutes or 6 months on the internet does not make them an expert. These guys have been in business for many, many years, whether it's Manfredi or other jewelers in different communities. I mean, they have people that are trained and they're people that you can trust. I always say it's like finding a good lawyer or a good doctor, which I'm sure there's some in the room. You want to go to someone that you feel comfortable with and that you trust. You don't have to worry about whether you're getting what you're supposed to be getting. So this is a phenomenon called fluorescence. Some of you may or may not be aware of it, but diamond fluorescence is something that is visible. The diamond is exposed to ultraviolet. And it can sometimes, there's a lot of discussion around fluorescence. Some people think it's bad. Some people like fluorescence. A lot of dealers will price them lower due to the fluorescence. But about 25 to 35% of diamonds exhibit some type of fluorescence. About 95% of them will be this blue fluorescence. Really don't affect the beauty of the diamond unless there's 4 categories. There's one called none, strong, and very strong. Very strong blue. And some people think they're fascinating because if you have your diamond and you go into a nightclub, it's going to glow in the dark. Although I do know a story once where a gentleman bought one and wasn't aware of it, and because he didn't go to a reputable jeweler, and gave it to his wife, and they went out and we were exposed to, and she freaked out. She said, "What's wrong with my diamond? Is it me?" So they had to go back and so there's that side of it. So again, it's about education and reputation, transparency. You need to be educated about these things, but fluorescence does not affect the beauty of the diamond. Some people say a really strong blue will make the diamond look hazy. Diamond is already hazy. This might just enhance it. There's also the fact lower color diamonds, if you have the JKLs, and they have strong fluorescence. If you take those out in daylight, they will face up much whiter. So they can enhance the diamond as well. If you shop around, and if you're educated, you can save. There is some good value in purchasing fluorescent diamonds. This just gives you an illustration of what some of that fluorescence can look like, the greens and the yellows. We'll just talk real quick about fancy color diamonds. You can see they come in pretty much a lot of different colors, just about every color of the rainbow. Probably the rarest of all being red. If you've ever seen a red diamond in your life, you're extremely, extremely lucky. There's very few of them that exist. I've seen a couple, but they are the rarest, followed by green. Green diamonds are also extremely rare. And the way they grade diamonds are a little bit different than the 4C. Talk more about the saturation, the tone, and the heat. Talk about terminology as fancy vivid, fancy intense, fancy, and fancy light. So they look at how much color is really being shown. Okay, let's talk briefly here. I know we got a roll here. About the engagement ring. Use of rings as a symbol of commitment dates back to very ancient history, specifically to the betrothal rings the Romans wore. Early rings often formed formed were of twisted copper or human hair, and they were always worn on the third finger like we do today, because the Romans believed that the vein that ran from directly to your heart was called the venom amoris. For the Romans, betrothal rings were often given as signs of affection and friendship, and they did not always represent the rite of marriage. The real history of the engagement ring began in 1215 when Pope Innocent III, who was one of the most powerful popes back in the Middle Ages, declared a waiting period, betrothal, and the marriage ceremony. Rings were used to signify the couple's commitment in the interim. It was around this same time that rings were introduced as a major component of the wedding ceremony. It was mandated by the Roman government all marriage ceremonies be held in a church. So in addition to serving as symbols of the intention to marry, these early rings also represented social rank. Only the elite were permitted to wear ornate rings or rings with jewels. And this here is the first engagement ring. This is well known. This was the first one recorded, 1477. This is Mary of Burgundy, and this time was presented to her by the famous European royal Archduke Maximilian of Austria. And you can see by the diamond, at that time lapidaries did not have the tools to cut diamonds. The octahedron, the raw diamond, set on top of this gold band. But who knows what diamond this is? This is the Hope Diamond. I think this is one of the most beautiful diamonds in the world. If you've ever been to the Smithsonian, you have an opportunity to see it live. But it's very interesting. I could talk all night about this, but we don't have time. But over its 350-year history, and this was discovered in India in 1673. Over its 350-year history, the Hope Diamond has become one of the most famous after being stolen, recut. It was said to have contributed to the downfall and death of some of its owners. It was originally discovered, it was 115 carat. It was called the Tavernier Blue, and it was recut and was cut and then recut. Current weight is 45 carats. It also has a very unusual phenomenon called red phosphorescence. So if you expose this to ultraviolet light, and when you take the light away, it will phosphoresce red for several seconds afterwards. Take your ultraviolet little flashlight when you go to the Smithsonian, flash it on there. So eventually in 1949, Harry Winston purchased this, and he traveled it and exhibited it around the country for about 10 years. At one point, he donated it to the Smithsonian in 19... It's funny, put it in a little cardboard box, put a registered mail stamp on it, not stamp, but it was sent through the mail to the Smithsonian Institute. So we all know this is the royal jewels, the crown jewels, as we know, and kind of unusual to see them being worn by the king, because we're so used to seeing the queen wear these. But this, of course, is Charles wearing a royal state crown and the royal scepter. This was thought to be the largest diamond ever faceted, but there is one larger, and I will show you that. This was the Cullinan 1. This weighs 500, and it is been in the royal scepter for quite some time. It's referred to as the Great Star of Africa. This one is the Cullinan 2, and it weighed 300. It's at the base there. It's a cushion. If you've ever been to London and into the crown jewels, some of you may have seen them. I was fortunate to have a dinner in the tower when I was there because of De Beers sponsored the tower for several years. This is interesting. This is the Cullinan 3, which hangs from the Cullinan 4, and these are referred to the Lesser Star of Africa. Both of these combined weigh 157 carats. No small little bauble. Queen Elizabeth revealed that the family referred to these as Granny's chips, and you can see her wearing them there. So this is the Golden Jubilee. When it was discovered in South Africa in 1985, it weighed 755 carats. This diamond polished out to be 545, so it in theory is larger than the Cullinan 1. This was presented to the King of Thailand. It remains in the royal family, and because of its yellowish brown hue, it obviously isn't worth as much. I mean, it's very valuable. It's not worth nearly as much as the Cullinan 1. This little diamond here is called the Eureka. This was that first diamond discovered in South Africa. Music is starting to play. I can hear the music playing in the background, so I'm going to have to speed through some of these slides, and we're not even to lab yet. So again, as I said earlier, I could talk about this all night long. So this is the Eureka diamond that was discovered by a young man playing in the streets. It weighed 20 carats, and it was recut 1073, and it actually belongs to De Beers today. This diamond here is called the Conn diamond, and it's from Arkansas. It was discovered, that's the rough in the middle, and it's a thin diamond that has extremely clear and beautiful color. It was loaned to Hillary Clinton to wear for Bill Clinton's inaugurals as governor and as president. It's 400. It's 4 carats, 25. It was designed by a famous American jewelry designer called Henry Dene. I'm going to go quick here. So this is obviously Elizabeth Taylor, 33 carat engagement ring, her first one from Richard Burton. That's what it looked like on her short little fingers. And of course, this is the famous Taylor Burton diamond, 69 carats, purchased from Cartier for $1.1 million. She wore it, this is her at the Academy Awards, in 1970 when she announced the Best Picture for Midnight Cowboy. She was only allowed to wear this in public 30 times a year due to security, and she had to have security with her at all times. After she divorced Richard Burton the second time, she sold it to a New York jeweler, Henry Lampert, $5 million, and part of the proceeds she used to fund a hospital in Botswana. This is just a picture of her wearing the ring and that's the 69 karat as a ring and a pendant. Be quick through these because I have a few more slides. This is Beyonce 18 to 24 karat emerald cut from Jay-Z that cost $5 million in 2007. Kim Kardashian 15 karat famous deep flawless diamond. Kanye West rented out AT&T Park in San Francisco to propose to her. Then in 2016, this diamond was stolen, you may or may not remember, from her hotel in Paris, and it was never recovered. This is Meghan Markle with her 3-stone, very modest ring, the 3-carat cushion that Harry actually purchased in Botswana, and the 2 side diamonds were from Princess Di, some of her jewelry. Jennifer Lopez, who collects diamonds, this here is a green diamond that she received her second engagement from Ben Affleck. This weighs 8.5 carats. It was purchased, it was $8 to $10 million. She has a 15 karat from A-Rod. She's got an 8.5 blue diamond from Mark Anthony. She had a 6.1 pink diamond first go around with Ben Affleck. So she did, though, indeed make the color diamonds famous. So, I mean, there's a thing about jewelry on celebrities. So this is actually a closer picture of it. And it was manufactured by a friend of mine, Rahamanov, who's out in LA. So let's talk about the hot topic. We have a few more minutes, but lab versus natural. First, the primary difference lies in their origin. Lab-created diamonds are grown in controlled technological environments, while natural diamonds are formed naturally within the Earth's mantle. They're both chemically, physically, optically identical with the same hardness, brilliance, and fire. For those of you who had the chance to look at the diamonds back there, I'd be really surprised if anyone can really tell the difference. Trained eye is a really hard time. I mean, they have to use special equipment, different type of occlusions, and use an absorption spectrum behavior inside the diamond. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they look like a diamond, they smell like a diamond, they are diamonds. They're mined above the ground. That's the main difference. And they're beautiful. And that's what you need to be aware of. And some people are okay with that. With all technology, I mean, I remember talking about large screen TVs when they first came out. They were as big as this, and they were $79.99. They were expensive. They had big projectors then. Today, you can buy a large screen TV for $199. So it is technology. So as technology gets stronger and stronger, diamonds will hold their value. I mean, they have over time. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But here's a quick timeline. There have been numerous claims of when synthetic diamonds were first discovered or first created. General Electric really put them on the map in 1954. They were the first to really successfully synthesize them. And then in 1970, they made them in gem quality. So anyways, I won't go into all of this. What's important is in 2014, they really came on the scene in the jewelry industry, or the gem quality, where they were showing up in stores. From 2016, they were a $1 billion business in the United States, where today they've grown to $12 billion. It's a real thing. And I mean, there's a lot of stores that sell them. There's a lot of consumers that ask for them. But you need to be well informed, and you need to talk to your jeweler, find out everything there is to know about it if it's right for you. So there's 2 ways of creating them. There's one called HPHT, which is high pressure, high temperature. This actually mimics the conditions of how they're formed in nature. Large machine is fed a certain amount of carbon, and it's crushed under pressure, 870,000 pounds per square inch, which is the equivalent of putting a Boeing 747 on its nose. That's how much pressure is applied. Again, and these are what some of the diamonds look like that come out of that process. They look very similar to some diamonds coming out, although you can see where the seed started in the middle there. There's some more. These are actually the presses, so some people might argue, are they lab created or are they factory created? These are some of the hydraulic presses that they use to create that pressure. And then the CVD is a chemical vapor deposition, and these are when a seed is placed onto a vacuum chamber. This is more of a laboratory environment, hydrogen, carbon, and some of the gases contain methane. But at a certain temperature, the gas molecules are broken down and the layers start to form, and they look like, and that's the carbon. And again, I'm going fast, but I'll answer a lot of questions afterwards. This is more the environment where the CVDs are created. This here is the largest faceted diamond. This weighs 34 carats. It was presented to the GIA and was graded GVS2. The largest ever produced in rough state was 150 carats. All of them come with a grading report, clearly marked LGDR, that they're lab graded. They all have an inscription on the girdle so that you know it's lab grown. And then here's just some quick facts that I put together. Detection: all laboratory-grown diamonds can be detected using professional verification. You use, and again, jewelers can help you with that. One interesting thing is the energy. We all know that it creates, to run those reactors, creates a lot of energy. 60% of lab-grown are mass-produced in either China or India, where 63 to 74% of the grid electricity results from coal. There are some producers, and many of them in the world, that use solar and wind power. They're not regulated as well as the mine diamond industry is today. Again, natural diamonds are finite and rare. Lab will continue to decrease in value as technology continues to improve. Again, transparency, education, trust, and is increasingly essential for the end consumer. What are we doing on time-wise? Do I have a couple more minutes? 5? Okay, all right. I have 3 more slides, but this is kind of a topic too that where lab kind of went. So Kimberley process is a process that we use in the jewelry industry and the diamond industry you may or may not have heard of. It was established back in 2000. Started in 2000, and it was mandated in 2003 by the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, which at that point there was 52 countries involved. Today there's 82 countries involved. And this was to curb illegally traded diamonds, of which many of you have heard and are aware of the term blood diamond. Blood diamonds don't really exist today like they did back in the Civil War periods in Sierra Leone, Angola. But this was a result of that. Then there was probably 20% of diamonds were traded illegally. Shortly after the Kimberley process was put in place, that was reduced down to 5%. Today there's less than, blood diamonds were areas in the world that were controlled by forces and rebels, factions that were opposed to legitimate, internationally recognized government. And you've seen the movie, some of you. It was a thing, but it wasn't in any of the producing countries that De Beers operated in. De Beers actually today runs a program for artisanal miners, river beds and things like that in some of these countries, and they actually put together financing for them. They're trying to build a real business model so that these diamonds make it to market and that they're rewarded and paid properly for their responsible sourcing is something that strong feelings about, and I learned a lot in my years at De Beers that they give so much back. De Beers actually moved its operation, so committed to Botswana. They moved their operation from London, 10 or something like that. They moved their operation from London to Gaborone. Those site holders I talked about earlier, those 78 or 80 site holders that have to go to London, used to have to go to London 10 times a year, their share of diamonds. They now travel to Gaborone. The economy is thriving. There's a lot of good going on in Botswana. There's free education for over 500,000 children. They are doing wonderful things to protect the wildlife around the mines. Mines are some of the safest places in the world, so it makes sense that they would protect the ecosystems around them. This is my last slide. This is a great story that De Beers, part of their efforts, Natural Reserve in South Africa. It's part of what they call their diamond route. It's 500,000 acres of land conservation. There was a park that was overcrowded and it was destroying Venetian land reserve, destroying the ecosystem. So they literally moved 100,000 miles to a new home in Mozambique so that they can thrive and continue for years and years. So the goal through the De Beers diamond route is that De Beers can ensure that nature's treasures are protected for generations and generations long after the discovery of the last diamond. I'm sorry I had more slides than I thought, and again, I could talk about this all night, but I thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation.